I think technology is the big game changer.
Hmm.
I mean, even in the last 6 months with Chat GPT
Correct.
and just the momentum around that, um, I I actually think that there are really great elements to embrace, and I think we're already doing that. I don't think that tomorrow we're all going to be replaced with robots.
My name is Kevin McIntosh, and this is the Closing Table, where we talk to experts about their experience in real estate all across the country. Let's go. All right, welcome to the Closing Table. I am your host, Kevin C. McIntosh, and per usual, we have another top-performing real estate professional. As our guest, we want to welcome Scott Bzdok. How you doing, Scott?
I'm good, Kevin. How you doing?
Man, doing good, man. Happy to have you here, man. We already started the show with a great conversation, great energy exchange, so I'm looking forward to seeing what we're going to have today. But we like to start things off a little bit cool, smooth, with an icebreaker. Quick game for you, Scott. It's called Fill in the Blank. It's exactly what it sounds like. No surprises. I got some sentences that have blanks in them. They're all related to real estate. I just need you to complete them with whatever
Okay,
context makes sense. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Let's do this, man. First one. Blank makes clients feel more comfortable.
Certainty makes clients feel more comfortable.
Okay. Next, I believe blank would make the real estate industry better.
Haha. I wish I could be funny about this one. Less agents, I guess. I'll say less agents. It's a weird
Okay.
one.
uh, Equity can also be explained as blank.
Why am I thinking on these so hard? Uh, Value.
I would agree. Lastly, a way to leverage high mortgage payments is blank.
Say that one again.
A way to leverage high mortgage payments is blank.
I don't have an answer on that one, honestly. I thought these were going to be a little fun. These aren't icebreakers. These are serious
Yo,
questions.
I'm sorry, yo. I didn't know
It's
it was
all
gonna
good.
be that. Hey, the fact that they are kind of, I don't send these to you in advance. It can throw you off a little bit. I
All good.
get
All
it.
good.
I get it, man. Well, thank you, man. Thank you for starting things off fun and still sharing some laughs with us as we get into the business part of the Closing Table right here. But before we even do that, for real, I really like our guests to take time to explain who they are as people. So, in about 60 seconds or less, Scott, can you tell us who you are outside of real estate, please?
Yeah, certainly. So I spent most of my career in marketing. So I'm a marketing guy at heart. That's what I know. That's what I've done. It's been really transferable to real estate. But probably more important than that is I am a consummate competitor. So I'm competitive with myself. I'm competitive with others, which really is what drives me forward.
Mm-hmm.
The desire to do better than you did yesterday. So for the last 10 years have been a competitive Ironman triathlete. So it takes a
Okay.
lot and for people who don't know, it's the longest triathlon in the world. It's about 140 miles divided up between a 2.4 mile swim, a 112-mile bike, and then a marathon all in one day. Um,
Whoa.
so that actually is like kind of a good personification of me.
Yeah.
Takes a lot of focus, discipline, effort, strategy, and execution to be able to do something like that and actually want to do it again. But
Really?
that's kind of the drive. That's me, and it's really transferable to what I'm doing now because it pushes me forward. My own kind of competitive nature is what kind of brings the best of me forward.
Yo, to start off with that, Scott, that is a truckload. You are you are built different, one of a kind. That alone tells us who you are, because you said a triathlon, right? So that's
Yeah,
these three major events all in one. You said
yeah.
140 miles altogether.
in one day.
between running, cycling, and swimming.
And swimming. Yeah.
Wow, wow. So, what got you into that? Like, are you a military man? Like, what
Oh.
really got you? Because please show me that direction. How did you get there?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I was never too athletic. I mean, I was athletic, but just casually. Like I played sports in
Mm-hmm.
high school. I casually in college, but I got into like individual sports when I got out of college, and I just started to go for runs with a
Right.
small group of friends. I started to do some races, and then I started to do like a marathon. Actually, I started it in my long distance stuff. Actually, my dad died when I was 20, and
Sorry to
it
hear
was
that.
like the 10th no, thank you. It was like the 10th year anniversary of his death. There was this marathon in Chicago that they were raising money for pancreatic cancer. It just felt like a lot of synergies and signs pointing me to
Right.
do something big. So I did it, and I kind of got the bug. And then after doing 5 to 10 marathons and doing well, I just started to feel like I needed more diversity in the life. So I threw a swim in there, threw a bike in there, and then started small, and then kind of continued to build up. And now I've done 8 Ironman. I'm actually doing one in 2 months. So I'm kind of training for that and doing real
Mm.
estate altogether, which is 2 jobs and a
Look at this man here, man. I'm convinced
half.
you take that button off. It's an S on that chest right there, man. I'm convinced, man. Well, thank you, Scott. That's very interesting right there, just to start off. But let's get into the business now, right? Real
Sounds
estate.
good.
Currently, can we start off by you telling me and our audience where you are, where you're serving, the market that you're serving currently? Let's start off geographically, and then give as much like economic information as possible with real estate.
Yeah, so I am centered in Oakland County, Michigan, which is suburbs of Detroit. I actually am not, obviously some agents look at, super localized and focusing on one very small market. I'm
Hmm.
learning to, and I'm trying to build my business based on referrals, which has me kind of picking clients and taking up wherever they are and wherever they're looking. So I would like to have my business centered in Oakland County, kind of along the Woodward corridor from, where I live in Huntington Woods up through Birmingham and then into the
Hmm.
surrounding suburbs. But, my clients have me going everywhere. So I do cover parts of Wayne County, Macomb County, Washington County. But I actually wouldn't have it any other way.
Okay.
Um, I did focus for a little while on trying to own my neighborhood. Um, but I feel like that kind of gets monotonous after a while. And I like the diversity of doing different things every day. I mean, that's why, a lot of us got into real estate is because we didn't want to do the same thing every day. So yeah, I'm focused in the southeast part of Michigan. Actually, I've done a little bit of stuff up north, but economically, I've only been in the business 2 years. So everything's been surging, everything's been rising. 12% in 2021, but even this year where we thought it was gonna be flat, it's kind of anything but.
Mm.
And then kind of price per square foot, days on market, those types of things. It's so hard to kind of just generalize just because everything is different. And one day I'm helping somebody buy a first time home in Ferndale to a couple of days later I'm helping someone buy a $2.5 million home.
Yeah.
So it's a little
Yeah.
bit all over the place, but that is again kind of the niche I chose. I chose to be adaptable and work towards all the different types of clients I'm working on, which doesn't have me kind of pigeonholed in any type of economic model for the market.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. I want to get a little bit into, you entering into real estate in general, since we spoke on that briefly. I mean, before entering real estate in your other field, you said as your career increased, you realized you didn't have a passion for it anymore. So let's talk about that. How did you find meaning in your work as a real estate agent, especially after feeling disconnected from it in your
Yeah.
previous career, disconnected from your career?
And that's why I think I started with who I am as like a competitive person.
Mm.
I was in marketing. I was very successful in marketing, but I kind of fell into it because I needed to choose a degree in college, and I just wanted to be creative. I actually, before college, wanted to be landscape architect or an architect itself. So I've always
Okay.
been kind of focused around the house, but
Right.
I kind of chickened out on the idea of having to be creative for a living, and thought, I could be live business, live creative at the same time with marketing.
Right.
And I did well. Like I was leading some big pieces of business. I ran some of the Pure Michigan business, which is our travel campaign, but I worked on Ford Motor. I ran strategy for them. I ran strategy for a bunch of very large, multi-Fortune 500 companies.
Okay.
And I was a COVID cliche. I just got to the point that I couldn't live another day the way I was living. Um, and I needed to kind of go back to, I think, what was at the core of what I was actually interested in. And that was things in and around the house. So I
Mm,
had a mentor who was my aunt who did something similar 10 years prior. And she's exceptionally successful. So I just chose to do the same thing and, kind of jump ship mid career at the height of my career. And um, I never look back, and it's interesting because I feel like I am a little bit of an introvert, but it's
yeah.
opened me up. And the thing I like most about what I'm doing, that I didn't realize, and like, is just helping people. It's in a weird way. Um, People say that a lot. You help a lot of people in real estate, and it to me it always felt a little bit, yeah, but you also are going in for a paycheck, and it um, but that's actually been the biggest awakening to me is you're helping people with some of the most difficult, scary, and sometimes very uncomfortable situations
Exactly.
of their life. There are so
Right.
many people that in the last 2 years I've been helping that have had some sort of divorce. That's a really tough thing for
Hmm.
people. Um, so it's almost as if my work in real estate has just been able to help people in kind of maybe the highest points of their life, maybe the lowest points of their life, but that's what makes it meaningful. And that's what I think I was missing in the
Yeah.
marketing world is I was, earning clients money. But I felt like it was very soulless. And now I feel like there's a lot of soul in what I'm doing.
Yeah. See, and that's it. That literally segues into what my follow up question was going to be about, like the fulfillment of helping people, not even just
Yeah.
clients, but helping people achieve what is more than likely their goal. If they're making a big purchase or a big investment in a home or property or whatever the case may be, it's a big emotional investment, and to help people make that big life decision and things like that, it has to have a lot of fulfillment, because at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure you never handed somebody the keys with a frown on their face or something like
No.
that. Like, I didn't want this house. You see what I'm saying? So that's
Yeah.
what I get it. I get it.
You'd be surprised though. Actually, I have had one or two people who's like, "Yeah, I'm not happy about this," and it wasn't, it wasn't anything I did. It just was it was a tough market. It is a tough market, and people are kind of if they're forced to do something, they're forced to do something. And that's actually the one, that has happened once to me in the
Okay.
2 years where somebody was like, "Yeah, I'm not really happy about this," but it was a circumstance that couldn't have been avoided, and that's the one that still stings a bit. And I was thinking
Mm,
about that even yesterday as I was driving home. It's like, of all the clients I've had, that's the one that feels like the one that was the biggest disappointment. And we did it. I did, everything went right, but in some ways it felt wrong.
mm.
But those things happen.
It takes a lot of vulnerability for you to even talk about that and admit that, right? Because I mean, I have so many guests on the closing table. Everybody has such a great success story, and
Yeah.
they'll share some of the downfalls, but my thought of everyone always having a smile on face when they get their keys comes from talking to so many people who have that
Yeah.
story. But for you to have a story to share that, the, the other side of the pendulum actually happens too sometimes. So
For sure.
that's
And in the
crazy to
last two
hear though.
years too, people feel like they, made sacrifices. And there's a lot of people who bought, a year or 2 year ago and are
Yep.
selling now because they were forced into something that they maybe didn't think was right. And not forcing, me forcing, but just, circumstance forced.
Correct, correct.
Um,
Whew,
and I
man.
think that's going to happen. And to me, that was, even though it was a success and we, closed it successfully and he got what he theoretically wanted,
Mhm.
it was kind of the most disappointing thing that I've done. And um, I don't know, that's a bummer to go on
Yeah.
that conversation. But yeah, it's not, I mean, that's the thing about real estate. There's lots of highs, but there are some lows that are pretty low.
That's the real side of it. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the transition from you working in the corporate world to real estate now. Completely different business models. How is that handled? How does that shaped or impact your ability to handle curveballs and these unexpected challenges in your work?
Oh, marketing is a perfect segue into real estate. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing more, I think, relevant to real estate is marketing. And marketing yourself, marketing homes, differentiating your proposition, your value versus somebody who can come in the next day and meet with the seller. Um, Working in a corporate environment helped me. Marketing, you handle client curveballs all the day, so this all day, so it wasn't a new thing for me by any means. These just are different curveballs that I've had to learn and adapt to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I ended my career as a vice president in some very large companies, and it set me up because I have a very sophisticated network. I've handled very sophisticated clients. I've had to have very tough conversations. Um, and I've had to create relationships, which now those are my clients, and it's allowed me to kind of leapfrog where maybe some other agents are when they started, having to start really and scrap. I've been very fortunate in the people who I've created trusted relationships with now that now kind of transfer that trust to this different field, and I truthfully haven't missed a beat, which has been very fortunate. I realize that.
That's neat. Speaking on that, you started off by mentioning, and I didn't forget this because I can relate. You said you were a bit of an introvert. I
Yeah,
can relate to that, right? So, how do you come out of that shell of feeling like you're an introvert, but you have to be, I don't want to say outgoing, but you have to
yeah,
have a bit of an outgoing,
yeah.
feature to yourself in order to get these clients, right? How did you
Yeah,
break
no,
through that?
I was notoriously the person that never texted anyone back, never called someone back, my family in particular. Uh, and then they're like, "You're gonna get into real estate. You don't call people back." Uh,
What?
and I mean, it's a true thing. I I think I choose and I choose how I do it. I think
Right,
it's
right.
one I'm forced to. So I realize that I have to do things different, and that's a kind of an exciting thing. I'm
Mm-hmm.
still an introvert in the way I work. Like I'm not going to be um, the poster child in the front. I kind of like to still sit on the sidelines or sit a little bit, out of the front,
I feel that.
spotlight.
Yeah.
But and I think this is also I'm an introvert because that's where I'm more comfortable. It doesn't mean that I can't be extroverted. And actually, if you probably talk to most of my clients, they would think I'm pretty extroverted. But
I know what you mean.
it's
Yep.
it's a comfort. I really like the people I work with. It allows me to kind of bring more of myself to the table, and that's why I've chosen to kind of go the referral route because I work with a lot of the same people who referred me to a lot of the same types of people, and it helps bring me out of my shell. I mean, there are times though that I would much rather just go home and kind of just chill by myself, but um, again, it's all about new experiences, and the people who can embrace those in this market in this industry are the
Yeah.
ones I think that will do well.
Yeah. It's a mental thing. It's a
It is a
mental
mental
thing.
thing.
Once you get past that, man, like greatness is on the other side of that.
Yeah,
Greatness. Yeah,
yeah.
I can agree. Hey, so I got this quote. I'm not sure if you said this, but I want to ask you about this. It says there's also tons of threats in this space that is happening with discount brokerages and technology companies trying to do some of the things that agents do. So speak on that. What are some potential threats or disruptions you anticipate in the real estate industry, and how do you plan to adapt and stay ahead of the curve?
Um, well, I'll have to unpack that in a couple different ways. I think the first one, that kind of the most pressing one, there's always been like discount things and happening
Mm-hmm.
in business. There's the discount brands that you find in the shopping market. And there's the discount, financial services. Like there's always been the idea of discount, and I think that there are people that gravitate to that, but then there's always going to be a subset of the market that's going to want, the branded, the full, fully executed, the full experience. I'm not as worried about the discount brokerages as much. Of course, they're not ideal, but that is a thing. I think technology is the big game changer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even in like the last 6 months with Chat GPT and
Correct.
just the momentum around that, um, I actually think that there are really great elements to embrace, and I think we're already doing that. I don't think that tomorrow we're all going to be replaced with robots. I don't. I mean, I don't
Right.
think anyone would ever say that. But I think that there are things that, we're already starting to see the impact of it. And I think there are really
Mm-hmm.
good things that we can embrace from it. One, just virtual staging and the way that, photographs are kind of adapted, and, how will AI, impact how things visually look in a house and are portrayed. Like that's going to create opportunity. Is going to create a ton of threat, but
Yeah.
you're still going to need people you trust to give you fair, truthful, honest impression experience on things that technology by itself won't do.
Mhm.
And to me, how I've created my value to my clients is by completely over servicing them, by going so far above and beyond the call of duty that a normal agent would do. Um, that and that's the appreciation I get, and that's why people talk about me. I really do create custom, unique experiences for every single client, from the way I meet them to the experience I have with them to the closing gift to everything,
Mhm.
um, to the amount that and beyond closing, well after. That's not something that I think technology is good for. Technology is transactional, and I think you can embrace it. I think data. I came from a marketing CRM perspective, so I think data is going to be a big game changer of how AI can inform how you go to market, how you set your price, how you evolve to the market conditions. Like, I think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a benefit, but I don't think it's just going to be one thing or the other. I think it's going to be picking the things that help set you apart and using the pieces of data and technology that, reinforce your core value.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, maybe in 35, 40 years, we're all going to be bots selling houses digitally, but they've been saying that too about flying cars for, since the 60s. And it's,
Yeah.
arguably technology is a force multiplier. I realize that.
Right, right.
But I also think that, you know, and I was thinking about this before our conversation, the entire Moneyball scenario. Like, it was a new way to think about baseball
Mhm.
with what happened with the Oakland A's. And it was technology and data that changed the game in some ways, but it didn't revolve to people, having robots playing baseball. It was still technology supporting how people did things better, that was
Right.
natural to who they were. People
Correct.
are still going to be at the core. The ones that who embrace it and see it for what it's worth, I think, will be the ones that set themselves apart.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the same thing with any and all new technology, if you
Yeah,
ask me. It's going to, I mean, not even just technology, but new things in general. Like, you'll have people who'll jump on that train immediately and support it and blow it up. And then
yeah,
it'll become a bubble and eventually pops, or whatever the case may be. Or you'll have people that just obviously just shun away from it and just feel like it's the worst thing ever. But ultimately, it's a tool, ladies
use a
and
tool.
gentlemen, created by humans, for us to use and
Yeah,
leverage, leverage our productivity, our work, and things of that nature. So uh, it's like, calm down, just find out how to use it, and
yeah,
and what it's made for, and then I think most people will be all right. But
I agree with you.
it's funny how people get scared when you even talk about AI nowadays. But we're in a different time, so I get it.
I
So
think the fear is the unknown. I mean, the just people who don't understand it.
hmm
People shy away from anything they don't understand.
yeah,
The world was flat. They don't, there are a lot of things that. But then, if you want to be scared your entire life, then fine. Avoid it, run away from it, embrace a little bit, try to understand it. Makes everything feel less daunting, and then you
correct.
see the value that it can provide. So lean
Talk
in.
about it. Hey, so getting into the transaction process, not all appraisals are made equal. Some are higher than the sale price, some are lower than the sale price. But how do you assist the seller in questioning the appraisal report if it seems too low, and ensuring that their concerns are effectively communicated and addressed?
Oh, that's a appraisal. That's a fun one. Yeah, I don't want to speak ill of any brethren in the industry, but I feel like it's a weird pseudoscience of ego. Um, I've tried a position to have appraisals adjusted that I thought were unfair. I've seen appraisals come one, $600,000 contracted price. I've seen appraisals have $100,000 of swing between one appraiser and the next. Um, I think that it's, they'll say it's part art, part science. I think there's a lot more art to it than there is the science of it. I'm a very
Mm,
analytical person. I'm a very systematic person. If things were all done the same systematic way, things would be a lot closer. But,
right.
to answer your questions, helping, question or how do I support clients? I mean, it's the small things of one being, starting with that from the very first moment of meeting a seller, if that's, the side of it that I'm representing, and taking them through comps and how an appraiser is going to value their property different than how a buyer might value their property, and how
Mm-hmm.
those two values need to come together. So my entire conversation starts there because I know the majority of transactions will end there. Um, but then it goes to just, being through and consistent with the entire process, meeting the appraiser at the house, whether I'm handling the buyer or the seller, showing my comps, trying to justify in terms of property improvements what the market would value and why that appraiser should account for some of those market values in their appraisal. And the best that you can do is just be supportive. Um,
Yeah.
I've gotten appraisals back. I've argued a couple of them. I've never gotten an appraisal overturned. I've talked to lots of seasoned professionals that, in their 20, 30 years, they might have gotten two overturned. So I don't think that that's the way that it has to be handled. I think you have to be upfront, from the first moment, because it's always easier to set the expectations, fair expectations up front, than have to kind of dig out from a really bad thing down the line. So that's
Mm,
my strategy against it. But the last thing I'll say too is, uh, around appraisals, is that and this is just me, but goes again to that competitive nature. I'm hungry to, if I don't understand something, given I've only been doing this for 2 years, I'm hungry to know and understand it. So
right.
every possible deal I can get my hands on the appraisal for, if I was, for the seller side, beg, borrow, plead to get the appraisal, I study it because I want to understand how somebody did that so I can learn from that so I can anticipate it in the future. That to me is, the unsung hero is, doing the work, understanding how it works so that you can anticipate and you can avoid those issues where the seller has to question anything.
Right.
Because theoretically, if you handled it correctly, they knew it was a strong likelihood in the first place.
Mm. What I'm shocked but not surprised about, if I'm not mistaken from what you said, is most, like, if you do get an appraisal and you feel like you don't agree with it and you want to challenge it, whatever you said, it rarely gets overturned. Rarely
Yeah.
gets overturned. I'm shocked but not surprised about that. I feel like that's just like in professional sport. Like if a referee calls a call,
Yeah.
that's the call. You can argue with them all you want, but more than I mean, unless they have to review it, like it's clear
Yeah.
evidence, like it's gonna be what it is. I mean,
It is.
it's
Yeah.
unfortunate, but
It is going to be what it is, even with instant replay. Like, you can have
you see what I'm saying?
yeah. I mean, you can have proof that that was a bad call. And I think even in the same way, like with
Hey,
the appraiser,
yeah,
you get two people who look at the properties two different ways, and the values are dramatically different. Again,
that
I had
is
a
a great
property.
point.
That is the proof that
Yeah,
it's a subjective opinion of value.
that's a great
And
point.
there are reasons to say that, okay, I mean, my argument is I might not have gotten it changed, but if we switch lenders and the appraisal changed, then it shows that there's
Hmm.
gray area, and there should have been that appraiser to take that into consideration. I just know that I haven't been successful, and I know a lot of people haven't.
Yeah, man, that is funny to, to make that analogy on the spot. That was pretty good. What we did there, I like that. Okay, okay. All right, so home means something different than maybe
Yeah,
it ever has before. In the future of what home can be and where you live and where you work is going to be different. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but how do you see the concept of home evolving in the future, considering the changing dynamics of where people live and work?
yeah. So I mean, I was still working in corporate during COVID, so I experienced the work from home, you know,
Hmm.
period.
Hmm.
I know there are a lot of people somewhat doing that. A lot of people are going back in the office. A lot of people are working flexible, and I think flexibility is the thing. Is the word that I would say. Like, and that goes to houses as well. Um,
Mm,
You know, people don't use formal dining rooms anymore. They looking like, in most of my clients, I talk to them more and more like, yeah, I don't really use this space. So I think spaces, houses have to become more flexible in the way we live in them. Whether it
okay.
means having the ability to flex a bedroom that can also be an office, that can also be a guest room.
Mm,
Um, I think the idea of space and the idea of flexibility and also where you live is and how you live is what's changing, and the people's need for greater flexibility and kind of questioning that just because things have always been done a certain way doesn't mean that's the best way to continue to do them.
that's a fact.
Um, I'm not saying that there's never going to be like, kitchens or dining rooms anymore. Like, I just think that, the way people live, I think houses have to be built and thought of, or, reimagined or redesigned if you have a historic house to
I agree.
be more flexible in the way we live today.
Hmm. No, I agree. I agree. And with that being said, it's interesting to think about what they could be, what homes could look like, redesign, reimagine with these new concepts and
Yeah.
multifunctional rooms and things like that. Like, imagine having a toilet in the same room you can cook dinner. Like, that is crazy.
I don't know if we're going that far. That might be
Oh,
a step
touche.
one too
I'm
far
sorry. I'm
towards
sorry.
progressive. Yeah.
My mind just goes there.
But I think to the point, that interesting thing, like in the last 2 years, you had this big rush out of the cities into suburban, into
Yeah.
rural
Oh, yeah, yeah,
areas.
yeah. Yeah.
But then also, I feel like there's a rush into like living in mixed life use communities where people have like, old historic buildings that they have a little bit of retail, a community area. So I just think that um, it's a large enough market that people can find their version of it, what it means, um, there's tons of flexibility in that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's a
Yeah.
good point too, piggybacking, because I mean, dealing with what we're dealing with now, a housing crisis, housing shortage, whatever you want to call it, we have to find more creative ways. I mean,
Yeah.
for these for these problems. So no,
So
that's right into it. Yeah.
to that point, and again, me being a little bit, trying to take on different things, I met a woman early on. So there's a restaurant in Detroit called the Detroit Shipping Company, and
Oh yeah, yeah.
she was the one that designed it, the
Nice.
using containers to build
Yeah, I've
a
been there.
building.
Yeah.
She's doing really interesting things with, using shipping containers in, North Corktown or in parts of Detroit. I think those are the types of people I'm really interested in, is how do you make more affordable, more efficient, more reusable, more green,
Mm-hmm.
mixed use type of spaces. Uh, like those are I mean, I love handling any type of house, but those are things that are really kind of just
Yeah,
cool. And I
for real.
think that more of that will happen. But that's just an example of someone I know, and again, got to stumble across that's, I think, really at the forefront of
Yeah, yeah,
interesting
yeah.
things in real estate.
No, that's a good point too, because I've been there, so I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah,
That's interesting
yeah,
that you even know the person that designed that.
yeah,
That's sweet. That's
yeah.
sweet, man. That's sweet. All right, so Scott, let's take it back. I don't know if you currently own a home, but
I
let's
do.
say you don't, and you're
Okay.
aspiring to, right? Knowing what you know now, using today's resources, what approach would you take to owning your first home?
I deal with a fair number of first-time buyers, and this is what I say to them. Um, you don't know what you don't know until you do it. You live in it. Buy Trial is the best teacher. Uh, I try to encourage people to think about, a first home not to be everything that you could ever want, but something to start and dabble and get comfortable with. Realizing that most people who buy their first home might be in it for 3 to 5 years, maybe 7 years. Um, I did that. I'm in my second house. We're kind of contemplating a third house too. I would first and foremost know that, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Things can
Mm-hmm.
always change. It might not be the perfect house, but, getting into something early, knowing that you're only going to be probably in it for a short period of time as you figure out how you live in a house and what you want in the next one,
Right.
means that sweat equity and things you can do to improve that space. One, from a cost standpoint, will get you a little bit of an advantage. You'll learn a lot more about what it takes to keep up a house, improve a house, maintain a house. So I try to encourage people to take on something that you can put a little bit of yourself into to make it your own.
Mm,
Um, Learn a little about, create some equity so that when you are at a point shortly down the road, and in today's in a very high market who might flatten a little bit, you have the opportunity to get out of it and still have a positive roll of equity into a new property. So I don't like people looking for the picture perfect Instagram house, which is tough because that's what a lot of
yeah,
people fixate on.
yeah.
It can be that, but also and probably more importantly, there are things you can change, aesthetically, and there are things you can't. Be really sure about the things you can't. You can't
Mm,
change your location. You can't change your tax bracket that you're buying into. Um, know that not everything is forever. And and my last little preachy thing is, um, we are the uh, generation and I guess society of instant gratification. We want
yes.
everything to be exactly perfect right away. We feel like we earned it.
Hmm.
I think there are good life lessons that are that are earned by having a house and working towards something and achieving it. Um, that's what I mean, if I would have done things differently, I probably would have done a little bit more of that. And that's honestly what I'm looking for in my next place is I want to find the perfect piece of land, perfect bones, and do it the way I want to have it done and have it for the because now I know because I've now
Right.
had two homes and I know exactly how and what I want. But I didn't, that changes and evolves.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. That's a good point, man. I couldn't have said it better than that. You left me speechless with that, Scott. I mean, yeah, I feel like you were kind of talking to me too, man. I needed to hear that as someone who's aspiring, getting their first home too, man. So, hey, Scott, thank you so much for pulling up a chair to the closing table. We appreciate you for being a guest here. At this
Thank
point,
you.
if you have any last words and or want to tell the people how to reach out to you, please do so now.
Last word. There are a lot of things for real estate agents, for customers, it's a big, daunting, scary thing. There's a lot to know. What I say is be confident in yourself and be fearless to just take whatever you can on. The process of learning is the only way to improve yourself. So that's what I've done very well in my 2 years. I will continue to do very well because that's the way I think about things. I'm going to try to take anything on and learn and be confident in my ability. um, so when faced with something that's a little bit scary, lean into it. Technology, lean into it. Heavy market, feeling like you're in the underdog, lean into it. Because if nothing else, you learn. That is kind of my biggest thing is there's a lot to learn. Be hungry for that. And again, Scott Bzdok, I'm with a company called Brookstone in Troy. If you want to reach out to me, you can obviously call our office. But I appreciate the opportunity, Kevin. It was nice to kind
Yeah,
of riff
man.
with you on a Thursday morning.
Yeah, man, definitely. Hey, appreciate you coming here, having some good laughs with me and sharing your knowledge, dropping some gems here on the closing table. Thank you so much. For our YouTube audience right now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, here's your opportunity. Please hit the like button. We appreciate that. Make sure you also share the content and subscribe to our channel. And if you're listening on Apple, Spotify, or any other podcast platforms, please do the same. That means give us a like, give us a 5-star rating, and also subscribe for our latest content. And Scott, I always like to leave our audience with a question before we leave, give them something to think about.
Hopefully, it's a little bit easier than the starter questions.
We'll see. It's subjective. Hey,
Okay.
audience, what other career field do you believe complements being a real estate agent the most? Think about it and put it in the comments. Other than that, we'll talk to you next time.